Welcome to another episode of the Sports Business Leaders Podcast. I'm here with Grant Breneman. Thanks for coming on, Grant.
Justin, thanks for having me. Happy to be on.
Yes, sir. So I'm excited to talk to Grant today. He's the co-founder and CEO of Arvello Media. So Grant and I met probably about 3 months ago. He's a former football player at Colgate University, stayed in the New York City area after graduating, got into finance, and then from there, with him and his brother Adam, they started a company called Arvello Media. So, with that said, Grant, could you just share a little bit about your background and how you ultimately ended up getting involved with Arvello?
Yeah, for sure. So, like you said, I was a former college athlete, played QB at Colgate University in the Patriot League, ended up moving to New York City to pursue more of a traditional finance route. Stayed in that role for about 3.5 years. During that entire time, my older brother, who is now my business partner, really started to build out his own personal brand on social media. And, kind of from developing that expertise, we saw an opportunity to launch what is now Arvello Media, which is a social media marketing agency. What we've done is we've taken all of Adam's experience building his own personal brand on social media with short form video, podcasts, graphic designs, and package that up as a service to create what we're building as kind of the number one content offering in sports. So that's kind of our North Star, and we're early in the game but growing fast, and it's exciting also to be back in the sports space. Like we're really creating our offering for sports brands. So it's exciting to come full circle from the Excel sheets back into back into this landscape.
Yeah, I'm sure obviously a huge change, but definitely the right time to be in it, with the rise of AI, analytics, and NIL and new digital platforms. Um, how do you see sports tech shaping the future of athlete branding? And then piggybacking off of that question, how do you see Arvello leveraging technology to help athletes and brands maximize their reach and engagement?
Yeah, for sure. I think there's a couple key trends that we've seen in this space. And the first is kind of the influx of capital into the space, whether it's to especially if we take it, the NIL space, which we're involved in pretty heavily. You have the influx of private capital, whether it's private equity or private credit. You have a lot of that interest coming in. You have the commercialization, right, of college sports. And then you have all of these different tools and solutions that are supporting sports as well, from all the way from youth sports all the way up to college sports, which again are kind of becoming professional sports. So it's definitely an exciting opportunity as far as the innovation that's happening. We've built our business around kind of wanting to help these businesses that are in the growth stage in the sports tech or sports media landscape harness the power of organic social media. You've probably seen a lot of creators or brands, businesses be able to grow through social media content. And we're living in an age where the ability to capture attention has become extremely democratized because of what TikTok has done and what Instagram Reels has done, where hey, if you're able to create good content around your story, you're able to reach people, and that has obviously positive impacts on a personal brand or your business brand as well. So that's kind of like our key goal, is to again help these brands and creators harness the power of organic social media. And with the amount of analytics that we get back from all of the social media posts, right? You go on TikTok, there every single post you have a number of views, you have engagement rates, you have so much data that we're getting back now that you can put that to work very quickly and have feedback about what people actually like to see and lean into that moving forward. And that's really like kind of the data driven approach that we take to a more creative space.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting, and it makes sense for your background coming from finance and working with Excel to, be into the analytics. So that's really cool. Now, obviously, like we're talking about all these different trends and what's going on in the industry and social media and digital storytelling, they're obviously, evolving rapidly. Like if you think about even 2 or 3 years ago, how different the world is and just how the algorithms are different. Where do you see athlete driven media heading in the next 5 to 10 years? And then how does Arvello plan to like stay ahead of those industry trends?
For sure. I think I kind of see two main trends. One is I guess the trend of college athletes becoming more than just college athletes and becoming real personalities and brands on social media. I will say when I was playing at Colgate, it was a smaller D1 school. It wasn't like we were, selling out our big stadiums. But even at that level, it was very taboo to post a lot on social media or create a TikTok, right? Where this is now changing, where players are becoming a lot more comfortable in front of a camera. And that adds a lot more value to them. And I think that they're recognizing that from an NIL perspective. So the more that the infrastructures can be in place, and I think it has to come a lot more from the NIL collectives or other NIL agencies themselves. And we've been working with them, with a few different ones on this in particular. But the more that they can create opportunities for their players to grow their own brand through content, whether it's helping them launch podcasts, having a podcast studio on campus that they can do a bunch of content, right? Putting all those things in place for them to grow their brand, like that's really important. On the other end of the spectrum, what we see is former athletes, right? That have, whether they might have played a few years in the NFL, they were a big time college athlete, they have some sort of following because they are an athlete. After sports, they're trying to figure out what they want to do. A lot of them see the opportunity in media, right? You've seen Pat McAfee, who was a punter, a good punter, right? But all of a sudden turned himself into an absolute media giant. And he really did that through, honestly, social media and podcasts, right? So that's the other trend where we've seen, like, especially former pro athletes that have this type of following. We started to work with them as well on, hey, how do you start to create more content to open up opportunities, whether it's going and being an analyst on ESPN or calling games on a Saturday or Sunday, or just creating their own podcast or IP or short form series, like that can really turn into their next step in the career. So you almost see it like, hey, at the beginning of somebody's athletic journey, kind of in that late high school, early college space, and then also afterwards as well.
Yeah, no, that's so cool. And this actually reminds me of one guy who I'm pretty sure he played for the Packers, but Ben Kirk, he does the videos with Madden and talks about it. And then
Uh-huh.
I know he makes content for quarterbacks to like learn from the video
Yep.
games. So like that's just I feel like that's a prime example of somebody who's a former athlete who wasn't a huge player, but like totally capitalized on the opportunity. So, you and I were the same age, like 25, 26, and it's crazy to think from our playing days, obviously you were at a higher level than me. I played Division 3 football, and it definitely wasn't a thing then. But I feel like over just thinking about the 4 years that we've been out of school and how different it is compared to when we were playing, and then playing that out in the next 5 to 10 years, like it's gonna be pretty exciting. And I'm super pumped to just see where you guys are heading and where the industry as a whole goes.
Yeah, for sure. And like I said, like it's going to like for especially I feel like we were maybe one of the last more traditional classes. Like I think I took a fifth year because of COVID at Colgate, and my last year was the first year of NIL. And really, we might be like the last traditional class where you're going to have these players that might not even touch the field, but are massive stars on TikTok and on Instagram and on YouTube because they've grown up with this content. So it's like going to completely change the dynamic. And I'm sure there's some traditional people out there that, hey, in the football locker room, you shouldn't be creating this content. You shouldn't be putting that stuff out there. But it's the way that it's going. And honestly, I have a lot more respect for people that capitalize on it than any
Yeah,
sort of judgment, especially
right.
being in the space and realizing the advantage that you have when you create a personal brand.
Right. And just thinking about the overall macro trends, like the kids that are coming to college right now, they're what, born in 2005, 2006. And it's like they grew up with, so they don't know anything else besides social media. And it's true because for us, at least when we were pretty young, like we kind of grew up before like smartphones were widely used and everything. So, it's pretty cool to just see how everything's evolving.
Right, for sure. Like we didn't, we had social media, but we didn't have the creator aspect of social media, right? Where like content was the main focus, where the generations behind us. I'm sure you can probably go to any high school in America, and there's probably at least a few TikTok stars in each class, right?
Oh,
Where
for
when we
sure.
were growing up, right, like that wasn't that even though Instagram was around, even though Twitter now X was around, that just wasn't the case, right? So it's
Yeah.
interesting just to see how everything's shifting.
Right, right, and you still had, like, a few creators, like, I don't know, like Mr. Beast, like, those kinda
Mm.
guys, but it definitely wasn't as widespread, and it's just awesome to see that, people are taking advantage of it, so, this is all great. Now, any last words, Grant, that you'd wanna share with the audience today?
Um, I think you know, I think for a lot of people, social media is a little bit of a black box, right? It is if you're not in it day to day, it's a little bit hard to approach and hard to get started. Like what we built out of Vela Media has been we've been really good at kind of taking whether you are a personal brand or a business, kind of taking things from 0 to 100 really quickly, right? And getting people off the ground and like really establishing what is their story and how do you start putting out content at scale. So, would be happy to talk to anyone as needed because again, it's a lot of times you're wondering where to look and where to start. So, you can find me on LinkedIn. Just Grant Breneman on LinkedIn. I'm on there a ton. Put out some content on there as well, and would be happy to chat it up with anybody.
Yeah, and just for the audience watching, these guys are legit. If you check out their website, they have some pretty cool metrics about the. I'm looking at your guys' website now. The 6 million organic views across IG, LinkedIn, and TikTok in the first 3 months. I guess is that like the average? What your clients typically get?
Yeah, so that I think that's from a specific like case study, which is like an interesting business that we work with that called Scout, which is creating a really a digital financial platform and financial wellness platform for NIL athletes, really helping them
Gotcha.
manage and properly steward the new earnings that they're able to receive, which has been it's been a fun journey to help create content for them and get this really interesting and useful message out about financial wellness and talking about the financial journey that is now very unique to, hey, these 18, 19-year olds are now getting six-figure checks in the mail, right? How do you properly use that to set yourself out for the long term? So that's been a lot of fun to work on them with content. We've had really good results.
Yeah, awesome. Well, Grant, really appreciate you again, and for the audience watching, thanks again, and we'll see you on the next episode.